Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Inflamed Sisters Thriving podcast, a safe space created to guide women living with chronic illness to uncover their purpose by doing what they were meant to do, move in power by advocating for themselves in all aspects of life, and to strategically accelerate their growth in their health, career, and business. You will learn how to stop hiding and how to start thriving. We will inspire, educate, and motivate you as we show you Inflamed Sisters Thrive together always. And once again, welcome to the Inflamed Sisters Thriving podcast. As you know, my name is Katina. I am your host, a registered nurse and chronic illness coach who is also doing her best to create an environment where women living with chronic illnesses can finally stop hiding and start thriving. And today I have my amazing guest. Her name is Cheryl Crow. Welcome, sis.
Thank
And
you.
not the singer Cheryl
I'm
Crow, but
sorry. Yeah, no, I'm the arthritis Cheryl Crow. Yeah.
yes, our inflamed sister who is certainly thriving throughout social media, on and off of these social media streets. Can you please introduce yourself to us?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So, yeah, as
Mhm.
Katina said, my name's Cheryl Crow. I am 41 years old. I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 21. So, I have had it for 2 decades now, or 20 years. And I'm also an occupational therapist. And that is a healthcare field that helps people with disabilities or illnesses and health challenges function better in daily life and really figure out how to live life to the fullest despite whatever challenge you have. So it's a very practical profession, which I love. And that's why I kind of specialize in the arthritis realm in life hacks for daily life. But also, my second passion in this arena is talking about the mental health aspect and coping. And I think a lot about I think about the word thriving a lot. So I love the name of your podcast and think about how I love thinking about how, like, can we can how can we better cope with and accept what is happening in our lives, whether that's an unexpected flare up or something like that. So anyway, I'm already going on a tangent, but yeah, I run my own social media channel. It's called Arthritis Life, and I like to share life hacks and talk to really interesting people with arthritis, just like Katina does, and just share our wisdom and celebrate how we can still live a great life with arthritis.
Exactly. And you also have an amazing podcast too. Why don't you
Oh,
tell us the name of it?
yeah, thank you. My podcast is called the Arthritis Life Podcast, or it's just called Arthritis Life Podcast. And yeah, I mostly feature, down to earth interviews with other arthritis warriors, but also sometimes interview healthcare providers or specialists who can kind of lend their wisdom and help us understand specific topics in thriving with arthritis. So things like maybe, I had someone on who was a yoga for arthritis expert or a rheumatologist. So it's been really wonderful. It's been so great to connect. And I definitely, when I got diagnosed, there was no social media, so I really felt like I didn't know anyone my age with arthritis. So it's really exciting to me now to be able to just so quickly, right? You can just have a conversation and connect and not feel so alone in your journey. So that's been really fun.
That's a beautiful thing because that does happen so much that people get the diagnosis and they feel alone because they don't have access immediately to people like them who are their ages or in different, similar career fields or in similar stages and phases in their lives. Because sometimes people think of arthritis as, an old person's condition. But that's not the case because, as you mentioned, you were diagnosed 20 years ago.
Yep.
And likewise for me, I've been having symptoms for more than 30 years since childhood. So it impacts so many people in various stages of life. And wonderfully, social media, now that it exists, connects us so much easier than it was in the past. And that's how you and I connected, through social
Yeah.
media. So make sure you find her on Instagram. We'll have all that information in the show notes. But what I wanted to talk about, Cheryl, is one thing I haven't heard is your personal journey. I've
Mm.
heard pieces of it, but can you tell me what was that your diagnosis story?
Oh yeah. I feel like I am still, processing it, to be honest. But yeah, I was a very, healthy child, healthy teenager, went to college. I was playing soccer. I was the captain of the college soccer team. And all of a sudden, when I was about 19 to 20, I started having what we were calling just a mystery illness. Like, what is going on? I had all sorts of really vague symptoms in different areas of my body. My eyes were really dry. My digestion was slowing down. Like, I would eat 2 bites of food and feel like I was full. I was losing weight, but I wasn't trying to lose weight. I was disturbed by the fact that I was losing weight. So we went to a whole bunch of different doctors, and I was told repeatedly, you're not sick, you're just anxious, you're just a hypochondriac. And that was really devastating because I knew in my heart there was something that you don't just get sick out of nowhere. Like, something has to be causing this. And I knew in my heart that I wasn't faking it or looking for attention or a hypochondriac. So that was a whole long thing I've gone over in therapy many times with my therapist, because the experience, some people call it medical gaslighting, or like I call it unintentional medical gaslighting, because technically gaslighting is when that it's an abuse tactic, when you try on purpose to make someone question their reality. But I think in healthcare, it's really accidental. They're not on the doctors on purpose weren't trying to like psychologically torture me by accusing me of being a hypochondriac and gaslighting me to say your symptoms aren't that big of a deal. But that's the result that ended up happening. So it was still traumatic. And so, but the linear story, okay, so how did I actually get the diagnosis? So this whole time I had these mystery symptoms. I had one sprained finger, quote unquote, sprained finger. And I had some widespread, like very mild pain, but it wasn't my main concern. So I didn't even mention it that often, except for my sprained finger. And then after a couple years of wasting away, I went from like 130 pounds to 105 pounds. I was convinced I had cancer or something really serious, because I just was like, what is going on? My body felt so off. I then woke up one morning and every single joint in my body was on fire. I couldn't open my fingers out of a fist. And it was like, okay, this is a new symptom. And then the doctor at that point diagnosed me with rheumatoid arthritis. So that's the diagnosis journey in terms of getting the diagnosis. And my emotional response to the diagnosis was extreme validation and relief. I felt really happy about having a diagnosis. I know that's not everyone's story, but there is a group of people who, if you've been told over and over again, you're not really sick, you're just a hypochondriac, to get the validity of the diagnosis can actually be a huge relief. But because I was so relieved that I finally got answers for my pain and my body being so off, I actually didn't really digest the severity of the condition. I just was like, okay, fine, whatever it is, you're telling me it has a name and that there's medications and a treatment plan that might help me. I have hope now. This is great. But I think I might have been a tiny bit overly optimistic, and maybe, in retrospect, I didn't fully take the time to understand the disease. In a way, it was a weird form of denial. Even though I completely understood that I had rheumatoid arthritis, I didn't really take the time to understand. Does that make sense? I didn't understand
Yes,
that it was
it makes
truly a
sense.
chronic. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for me, I had this similar feelings, and I was happy to finally get validated to have a diagnosis. And as a registered nurse, I understood what it was, because I had helped to treat so many patients within the practices that I worked in and within the hospital for. And the real reason I knew is because I also had a aunt who had been diagnosed many years ago when she was in her 20s with it. And she was diagnosed when there were no medications for it, when there was no potentially even methotrexate at that time to really treat it. So she had a crippling form of rheumatoid arthritis, in the sense that all of her joints had started to have deformities and things of that sort. So I grew up around her and with her. So that's why, as a child, I knew what rheumatoid arthritis was, because I saw it in my aunt, who had a severe case of it. And several of my aunts and other relatives had it as well. But I was happy to get the diagnosis, to be
Yeah.
told that it's in your head. I agree with the terminology unintentional medical gaslighting, because I know that some health professionals don't like that term
Yeah.
associated with them because there's no there should be no reason that someone would try to withhold a diagnosis from you, but
No.
there should also be no reason for them to tell you that real symptoms you're feeling is in your head. So a
Yes.
good middle place, I like that unintentional medical gaslighting. Let's not
Yeah.
tell. And as a health professional myself, and you too, we can understand the other side of it
Yeah. Yeah.
as well. But what a journey that you went
Yeah.
through. You have quite a story, sis, and you're gonna need to put that in a book. Is it in a book?
Oh, I do wanna write a book one day. That is on my bucket list. Yeah, but not yet. I don't have one yet.
She said, "Not yet." Okay, because I was about to say I'm about to buy that book
No.
because I know there's a lot of juicy pieces in there that I'm
Mhm.
missing still too. So so that was your diagnosis journey for arthritis, and you have rheumatoid arthritis like I do. Now, what was your treatment journey like? Was it
Yeah.
easy for you to get to what worked for you?
So yes, it was easy for me to get on an effective treatment plan, and my doctor was so optimistic when I got diagnosed that I didn't realize that not everyone had this experience. I thought it was kind of like, okay, you get put on methotrexate. I got put on methotrexate, and then I fast tracked onto Enbrel. Back then in 2003, you didn't have to do all this rigmarole of fail first of the cheaper meds. They just were like, we are actually going to be really aggressive with this because of my numbers and everything being so high. I mean, I can't
Mhm.
even describe the degree to which my body was just inflamed. And I was not thriving. And so I went into remission within like 3 months. Like it was pretty textbook. But the thing that I wish I had known then is I thought that was just going to be my plan the rest of my life. I thought of it as a static plan, not as a dynamic, fluctuating chronic illness. So I said, this is great. Okay, I take methotrexate, I take Enbrel. Like it's a little bit of a pain with like refrigerating it and self injecting, but I'll figure it out. And, I'm 21 and I'll just take these meds for the next, 60 years or however long I live. And I didn't understand that maybe my treatment plan might have to change over time until 6 years after my diagnosis. I had a really bad flare up and I was extremely confused because I was like, well, wait a minute, this is weird because I'm doing the same thing. I'm taking my meds, but I'm feeling bad. And my doctor had to have that come to Jesus moment with me where she's like, this is not linear. Like you sometimes the medicine works for a while and then your body might create antibodies to it, which is, I think is what's happening here. And then you're going to need to change course. And that was the time I actually really accepted that I had rheumatoid arthritis and then I grieved it. And I really didn't grieve it before because I think honestly, because I had such a positive, fast experience with getting diagnosed and being put on a plan that worked really well for my body. So I felt very grateful, and I was living a quote unquote normal life. I was um I played soccer. I was swing dancing, traveling the world. It really didn't profoundly impact my day-to-day routines. But since that, so this was 14 years ago. So since that period, I've been in and out of medicated remission but never as perfectly well controlled as that first 6 years. So I went on Remicade, and then I started occupational therapy school. My disease was pretty low disease activity during that. And then my husband and I got married and we got pregnant, and that was a plan. We were excited. I went off methotrexate, got pregnant, and then I went into complete unmedicated remission during pregnancy because back in this was 2013. The recommendation was to go off your meds if your body could tolerate it. And so, but the problem was then when I tried to go back on Remicade postpartum, it never worked as well again. So
Mhm.
that's a whole other long story. So I had a really bad postpartum flare up, and that was really hard to understand, like because I didn't know what I had never had a baby before, right? So a lot of times I'll be like, are you having difficulty finding pleasure in things that you used to find pleasurable? I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I have postpartum depression 'cause I don't know if I previously had difficulty finding pleasure in this because I've never done this before. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm being like too linear, but I was like, I think I'm having postpartum depression, but like, I don't know. So I ended up, it wasn't really depression. It was more like anxiety.
Mhm.
So I ended up, and it was manifesting as irritability, which I guess both depression and anxiety, according to what I understand, can manifest as irritability. But I just felt like every little tiny thing was putting me on edge. And I ended up going to therapy. Thank goodness. Thank you. Anyone who's listening who's a therapist, thank you. My heart goes,
Yes.
you're doing the most important job in the world. And so that really, really helped me. Honestly, I went to therapy for postpartum anxiety, but it ended up helping me with my chronic illness journey so much, because I kept thinking my disease is about to get better. Well, it'll be better. It'll be better soon. And my therapist helped me kind of say, well, what is reality in the moment? Can you connect to your present moment in like a mindfulness sense and potentially even just acknowledge that this is hard? Because I almost had this toxic positivity. Like I recognized that I was going through something difficult mentally and physically, but I was like, it was almost like a form of reassurance. Like they call it reassurance seeking if you have like anxiety or OCD, where like you're like, okay, I'll just wash my hands and I'll feel better. Okay, I'll just wash my hands enough. It's like you're seeking something you can do to feel reassurance, which is not bad if it's a small thing that actually works. But if you get caught up in that reassurance cycle and it's blinding you to your true reality, then that's not helpful. So I was kind of like, it's about to get better. The meds are going to work. And I wasn't really acknowledging that this actually was difficult. Does that make sense? So the therapy helped me a lot. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the truth is, I think honestly that all of us will eventually need or should see a therapist with the trauma. And because, in some sense, unfortunately, in the world that we live in, some of us have endured or faced some form of trauma, and chronic illness can be a trauma. It is a traumatizing experience because
Yes.
it
Yes.
does require you to have that grieving process. We've talked about it. I've talked about it in the past about how you have to grieve. For me, grieving the person that you thought that you
Yes.
were supposed to be and what you thought you could have had. But then you have to start to see things in a better light, in the sense of not being toxic positive, but in the sense understanding the reality is, no, I won't be able to live life as I thought I could, but I can potentially have an even better life, where I can still live a purposeful and fulfilling life. There are things I can do now and that I understand now that I couldn't do before. For instance, the amount of compassion that I have for people now and empathy that it caused my illness caused me to have it. As a nurse, you have a level of it as already to be a good nurse, but
Mm.
to go experience chronic illness and long-term and chronic pain and chronic fatigue, you really start to see that there's that person is tired or not able to come or not able to join into certain activities and things, not
Mhm.
because they don't want to, but because they're ill. So you start, when people do certain things, I notice for me, I start to see a bigger picture immediately. When someone
Yes.
complains about someone, I'm the person who says, well, maybe you should consider that potentially they're going through this. And that's what
Mhm.
chronic illness gave me. It gave me that extra narrative in my head to understand people's pain, understand people's what people are going through, and be more forgiving than
Mhm.
I was in the past. And that's a journey that I thank my chronic illness, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, and endometriosis for. But I had to grieve first to get to a
Yes.
level of acceptance. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Acceptance and commitment therapy. Let's talk about that. Is that
Yeah.
the form of therapy that you went through? And
Yes.
what makes you passionate about this?
Well, and you're weaving in the language of ACT just in what you were just talking about.
Mhm.
So I love hearing it. And yeah, so acceptance and commitment therapy is a approach that I actually went to a psychologist and a psychiatrist who does hour-long therapy sessions. So I actually didn't know that before, that psychiatrists can do that. But so both of them utilized a combination of different approaches, including acceptance and commitment therapy. It's also known as ACT, which is the shortening for it. So I'll probably just refer to it as ACT. But, in acceptance and commitment therapy, it's known as like a behavior, or it's a mindfulness plus behavioral approach. So the acceptance part is the first part. Now, the word acceptance, when you live with chronic illness and chronic pain, it's very tricky to wrap your head around. I mean, when my therapist first even just said the word acceptance, I was like, not interested. Like, no, my life is all about improving things. Like as an occupational therapist, we do learn like a balancing act between improving or remediating underlying problems and then working around them. But I'm like, why would I want to accept this? Like my point is to like fight rheumatoid arthritis or beat it, and I think a lot of people have this idea that, okay, I'm looking at this, I'm on this hero's journey, and the mountain that I need to climb and get around and get over is rheumatoid arthritis. And on the other side, once I've minimized my symptoms and eliminated this or that or cured it or healed it, then I can have a good life. But in acceptance and commitment therapy, the process, just to put it in a very blunt terms, is you connect to the present moment. That's the mindfulness part. And you allow it, and you do accept it. In the definition of acceptance in ACT is taking what is offered. So life is offering you rheumatoid arthritis. It's not offering you right now a life without rheumatoid arthritis. The day there's a cure, life's going to offer me something else. But for now, this is the present moment that I have. So you say, okay, this is what it is. And you actually allow yourself to look at that in the face and sit with it. And it seems like, wait, if something is difficult, why would I want to turn my attention towards it and allow it, right? And take it? No, I want to beat it away with a stick, I call it like the acceptance paradox. It's so strange. And I've tried to write about it. I have written articles about it, or, blog posts and talked about it. I still find it hard to explain this paradox where you would think that the more that you turn towards and look at your present moment reality, if your present moment is painful, intuitively, I would think that would make me feel worse, right? Thinking more about your pain, allowing your pain feels like it would feel worse. But what ends up happening in ACT, the important part is it's not just the present moment awareness. That's part one. That's the A. And then the commitment therapy part, this is kind of what transforms your relationship to your pain or your anxiety or whatever it is that's your challenge in the moment. You say, okay, this is here. Like, this is what life is offering me, is this pain. I'm going to take it and see what is possible. What's you connect to your values. So the commitment part is like, what's important to me? What makes my life meaningful? What brings me joy? What brings others joy? Like for me, it's like serving others, it creates a meaningful existence for me. And then you say, okay, can I take effective action? That's the T, towards that aligns with my values. Can I do something right now? Whether that's, I can send a card, I can call a friend, I can create a content piece, a video. It makes you confront your current reality, but also see the possibilities of your life with pain, with arthritis. So it's thriving with, rather than like defeating it or surmounting it, and seeing it as a part of you. It's really fascinating. And once I wrap my mind around it, like I said earlier, again, if you're listening to me like, what? Still, like, why? Why would I want to accept this? I totally get it. It took me multiple sessions with 2 different therapists to kind of understand it. But it's actually empowering because it teaches you, like, there's this phrase from an author I like, Tom Robbins. He's not the inspirational, that's Tim Robbins, but he's like a fiction writer, Tom Robbins. And he says, that which you hold holds you. And in my mind, it kind of reminds me of all the people who they hold so tightly to this idea that, well, I need to have, all my problems need to go away before I can be happy. I need to not have pain. I need to manage all my symptoms perfectly. Then I can have a good life. That is holding you. Like that's holding you potentially back from seeing the possibilities in your life as it is in the present moment, even if it doesn't get better. And looking that in the face, look, even if your condition doesn't get better, it's in a way, it's also like anti-ableist work, right? Because you're saying, like, do only healthy, able bodied people get to live a meaningful life? I don't think so, right? But a lot of us operate under that assumption. Well, I have to make it go away. Obviously, I have to make it go away because it's bad, because it's pain. Pain is bad. And pain is not necessarily what's keeping you from doing what you need and want to do to have a meaningful life. And I will say this is a lot easier to do if you're in mild to moderate pain. I don't know if this is the most helpful approach for severe pain. Obviously, you do want, if there's ways to ameliorate your pain, we both, have our pain toolboxes, right? Have your things to do, your lifestyle factors, and your physical tools. I'm wearing compression gloves. I'm not saying like I need to just feel 100% pain and like not do anything about it, but there's a power in acceptance and saying I can tolerate this actually. So, long answer.
Wow. So she is out here educating, inspiring, empowering, and motivating others to understand that arthritis is not a condition that requires you to give up on living a fulfilling life. And that's exactly the reason why I started my page too, is because I saw so many with chronic illnesses hiding in plain sight, like me,
Yeah.
and going through the struggle alone. And oftentimes we don't even talk about the fact that we have chronic illness in common because many people don't talk about it. It was as if it was something to be ashamed of. So,
Hmm.
like, while you're grieving, you also have this sense of shame that I have this illness that is like a monkey on my back that is going to take away all of the joy in my life. But that's not the case.
Hmm.
It's it can be a choice. And like you said, of course, it's a lot easier to say this when you're in mild to moderate pain, severe pain. But I've seen people in severe pain, including my mother, who still lives out a very purposeful life, doing the things that she enjoys, which she loves sharing and educating people about what the Bible teaches. And she loves going out of her way to help others to be happy, and to, if they need help, she's that listening ear for them. And she loves to travel, so she's going to find some type of way. If me and my husband are going somewhere, hey y'all, is this for an anniversary? Can you take me along?
Oh.
But the beautiful thing is that when I look at her and I look at people like my sister as well, who has lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, they're still fighting to live happy, fulfilling lives. And that's what I want to model for others as well, like you do, that there is a possibility. And yes, it's not easy, but do you want to give up? No, we pray that you don't want to give up. We want you to
Mhm.
continue to stay in the fight and strive to thrive with us until you're thriving. And
Mhm.
thriving doesn't mean pain free, but it means, for me, being able to walk in your purpose, to do what you were meant to do, to advocate for yourself, and to allow yourself to find success in all aspects of life that you desire. So,
I
wow, you
love
see what
that.
you pulled that out of me.
Yeah.
That you have a way of doing that. Um,
Oh, thank you. You too.
Thank you. But wow, that was beautiful. So remember, act. So is that acceptance, confront?
And commitment therapy.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it is an official, it's not like a proprietary approach where like you have to be officially trained in it, but it is
Mhm.
a psychological therapy approach that many counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, even occupational therapists, use principles of it. I've actually gotten trained in it, and trained in just tips for using ACT as a clinician. And it's really, I think it's really validating too to have people say like, this is your reality. Like, let's take a minute to just talk about what's actually going on here rather than trying to kind of reframe it like from a like cognitive behavior standpoint. Now, cognitive behavior therapy, technically ACT is actually like a subcategory of cognitive behavior therapy because, or CBT, which a lot of people talk about, because cognitive behavior therapy and ACT both start with the same premise, which is acknowledging that what you're having is a thought. So I know that sounds like obvious, right? But actually in ACT, so I didn't explain this part, but there's this process that they teach you called cognitive defusion. It's like DEFUSION, meaning you unfuse yourself from your thoughts. A lot of times as we're thinking throughout the day, your thoughts seem real, right? Like I forgot my medication. I'm stupid. I made a typo this morning on my arthritis life hack extravaganza. Oh, I can't believe I did that. We have these thoughts, and with ACT, you stop for a minute and you say, this is a thought. You identify that it's a thought. And in cognitive behavior therapy, you also say, what are the thoughts I had, right? But in CBT, when you're learning reframing, you will say, is that thought, let's do some detective work. Is that thought real or not real? What's the evidence? However, in ACT, you don't actually care whether the thought is valid or not valid. Is it right or is it wrong? You just say, that's a thought. Thoughts are just internal stimuli. They're things that my brain is making up as I live my life. And sometimes they align with reality, sometimes they don't. But can I bring my attention back to the present moment and what's important to me? And what they call in ACT, Dr. Russ Harris calls that turning off the struggle switch. The struggle switch is when you struggle with your thoughts and you try to control them and change them. So, a lot of times I've seen a lot of people go through cognitive behavior therapy and say, well, I'm catastrophizing. I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, or and it can be very helpful to understand when we're having what's called cognitive distortions, right? Thoughts that are too extreme, and to recognize that we might have maybe a depressive explanatory style or an optimistic explanatory style where we habitually see things in a positive or a negative light. I'm not saying those things aren't helpful, but what's really refreshing to me about ACT is it saying, I'm not even going to struggle with this thought. I'm just going to acknowledge that it's a thought. It's just there. And I'm not going to get caught up in it or wrapped up in it and give it more attention and think whether it's wrong or right. I'm just going to say, that's a thought I had. It's like a radio playing in the background. And then you say, okay, I had the thought that, I made a mistake. I did a typo on the social media post I made. Anyway, what can I do now in the present moment, right? I can correct the error. I can give myself some self-compassion and be like, I'm a human being. Human beings make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I don't have, maybe not have a delusions of grandeur, and then move on with your life. And that's something that I find really helpful. I think the thing I don't like about some of the traditional CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, again, is that sometimes people can get stuck on a cycle of negative self-judgment or endless gathering of data about whether their thoughts are correct or incorrect, versus just saying thoughts are just thoughts. They're not facts. They're just thoughts. And the same with emotions. So there's like a radical self-acceptance that goes along with it. Like, I'm just a human being having thoughts in my head. Like, that's fine. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. And I love the journey that you've taken us on in understanding ACT, and also how it applies to those of us living with chronic illnesses. How this can really help you to have a better outlook in life, despite the challenges that you're facing. We often think of, like I mentioned before, toxic positivity, but there's also toxic negativity too, because if we sit too long in negative thoughts, it can impair our ability to heal mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important for us to utilize techniques like ACT or mindfulness to find ways to allow ourselves to think more positively. That's a dose of anti-inflammatory medicine when we actually think more positively rather than negatively, and then understand the circumstances we're in and learn how to work within those circumstances to still thrive and live healthy, happy lives, as healthy as we can. So I love it. That was quite an amazing journey you've taken me on. I'm like, I got to read a book on this now.
Yes, I can give you some recommendations. My favorite one is The Happiness Trap by Dr. Russ Harris. And it's like The Happiness Trap, How to Stop Struggling and Start Living, a guide to acceptance and commitment therapy. It's really, really helpful. Yeah. I love it because it's even like just being neutral about your thoughts or your reality, not positive, not negative, just neutral. Like, yeah, this is just stuff happening. I'm a little human being on this giant planet, and it kind of gives you that perspective. Like, so anyway, thank you for being receptive. This is my favorite thing to talk about. So,
Yes. No. Listen, let me tell you something, Cheryl. Whatever you love to talk about, you are free to talk about with
oh,
me because
thank
I
you.
love your
You're great.
energy, especially when you are passionate about amazing and things. Like you're a person who is very selfless,
Oh,
selfless, LESS. Um,
yeah, 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 yeah,
you
yeah.
are really you
Yeah,
are
no,
really
yeah.
concerned about what you can do to help others. And that's what I love about you. And this is what others need to hear. And it's the first
Yeah.
time I've had the opportunity to talk about it.
It's so
So,
great. I love that we have the gift of time today that we get to talk. I know you're very, very busy, so I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
yeah, it's been amazing, and that's what I've been wanting more time to actually talk with you, and to also have these type of conversations because it's actually introducing to me to whether while my mind and I think in these areas, it's not something that I assigned an actual type of therapy to, and I like
Mhm.
ACT. So we definitely have to. I can't wait to put this out to share it. So
Yay.
acceptance, commitment, therapy.
Yep.
So we've talked about acceptance, commitment, therapy, how that relates to chronic illness. We talked about your personal journey, your diagnosis, and your treatment journey for your arthritis, your rheumatoid arthritis. But what we haven't talked about is, sis, tell me all the things that you are doing in
Oh,
these social media and off these social media streets. You just made an announcement recently.
yeah, yes. So I am hosting basically a 2-day celebration of arthritis life hacks. It's called the Arthritis Life Hack Extravaganza. But we are going to talk about way more than just the basics of arthritis life hacks. We're going to also talk about mindset and lifestyle. And it's just a time to come together and celebrate what we can still do, ways we can still function with inflammatory arthritis. And I just announced the registration for that. It's open. It's a free event with an option of like a VIP ticket, and that's February 4th and 5th, and it's all virtual. And that's on a weekend, so Saturday, Sunday. So if you go to, or I think you'll have it in the show notes, but it's bit.ly/arthritis life 23, all lowercase, is my little shortcut for that. And
Mhm.
I do also run like a few times a year. I run this basically it's an educational support group program for small groups of people living with inflammatory or rheumatic diseases called Room to Thrive. I think we both love that word, thrive. And
Mhm.
that is, the doors are going to be opening for that again in February to start in March. And it's a 3-month program where we meet every week. And I teach some lessons on things like tools for pain and fatigue, and coping skills and logistical skills of like tracking symptoms, all the little things like the job skills of being a chronic illness patient. And then we also have time to connect in a small group and have a support session where we celebrate the things that are going well and help people problem solve and around things that aren't going well. So I'm really, yeah, the pandemic has, been in a weird way. I just started Arthritis Life in 2019, and the pandemic has allowed me to kind of like pivot towards more of an online model than I was thinking about initially. But it's just been really great. I mean, I know you and I were talking earlier about your Inflamed Sisters Thriving conference, but it's just been, or our summit, but it's been amazing to just, I feel so connected to people all around the world right now that I
Mhm.
don't know without the pandemic would I have turned so much online. So, but last thing I guess I'll say is I do have, I do a lot of short form videos on TikTok and Instagram, and uh, really I probably should organize myself a little better. But it's really just whatever topics I think I'm passionate about and I want to help people with in the moment. Sometimes it's a product demonstration or life hack. Sometimes it's a mental health tip or pointer or coping tool. Sometimes it's a simple like, hey, here's something you might not know about rheumatoid arthritis. And also, I do also focus sometimes on just for fun and humor content because I do think that As Viktor Frankl said, he's a Viennese psychotherapist who survived the Holocaust. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He said humor is one of the soul's weapons of self-preservation, which I think that's a beautiful phrase. I think about that a lot. So I do also some funny videos and dancing videos and just try to, again, embrace kind of a vibrant, joyful life with this condition, despite the ups and downs, despite, I will have pain, most days, but I'm still celebrate what my body still is able to do. So it's been really fun. I would love, yeah, if anyone wants to connect on social media, please feel free to do so. I'm like a super extrovert. I did the Myers-Briggs test at one of my former jobs, and my boss was like, "You are literally the most extreme extrovert I've ever worked with."
And
Can
I
you
believe
tell?
it.
Is that
Catch
surprising?
her on TikTok, y'all. Catch her on Instagram in the reels, all over there. You will see that she is. I am what people don't usually see about me. I'm actually an introvert. But
Mm,
I am able to function in an extroverted way, but I'm
yeah.
really a person who is very much so an introvert. So I had to stretch myself to even create a public Instagram page a year and a half ago, and then
Wow.
to continue to do things like on the community level. And I learned that I do get fulfillment through these type of interactions. But no,
Yeah.
I'm I really I document as an intro. Well, I'm like that person who's I'm an introvert, but I fall right in the corner where I have a touch of extrovert like
Yeah. Yeah.
tendencies.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, but I love being around your energy, and that's what actually brings me joy.
Oh,
So
that's so
I appreciate everything that you're doing for our community, that you're out there telling us the best products to use and the best techniques to use to feel better, and then how to utilize ACT to
yes.
improve our experience with rheumatoid arthritis. You are just doing amazing things, and I look forward to your events coming up. I hope to
Yeah.
be able to. I would actually. I'm going to join
Yes.
your event
Yes.
as well.
Come on down. Yes. We'd
I'm
love to
coming
have
on
you.
down. But the other thing I'd like you to do is just leave us with where we can find you.
Yeah. Yeah. So my website is if you just put myarthritislife.net, like MY and then arthritislife.net, it redirects you to my website. The actual domain is arthritis.theenthusiasticlife.com, because you'll love this. That is the domain I got, theenthusiasticlife.com, a long time ago, for my first blog in 2009. And then I made a subdomain for Arthritis Life. So anyway, the enthusiastic life, I do really, that is a core value for me, is just being enthusiastic, being excited about things and excited about life, even with challenges that I didn't expect to have, when I was 20. And then I'm also on Instagram as arthritis_life_Cheryl, spelled with a CH. I unfortunately did not get the same domain thing in or handle and everything. Like every single one of my social medias is a different handle because I didn't know when I was starting. So I have a YouTube channel, and also TikTok is just Arthritis Life. And those are where I'm most active. At Twitter, it's Real CC, like REALCC. But and I'm on Facebook as well. So anywhere.
So let me tell you something. Those who are engaged in social media strategy and all of that,
Oh
she
yeah.
is the proof that you don't have to have everything in one place, because she's out here thriving in the social media street. She has amazing communities on all of those outlets. So please go and check her out and follow her. You will not regret it. You will
Oh,
actually be
thank you.
enthusiastically happy about this arthritis life hack that
I know,
I have given
I
you.
feel I do, and this is just me, sorry, randomly responding, but I do feel like sometimes people are like, "Why is she so excited to have arthritis?" Like, I know that it can be off-putting because I feel that way when I'm really fatigued. I will look at some of my old content and be like, "Stop smiling, lady." Like, so it's okay if you're not 100% resonate with my content. Even I am not always in the mood to see what I'm doing or what I've done. But yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I do try to, I think it gives people hope, to see that you can still have a good life with this. And I mean, you're doing the
Yeah.
exact same thing. So thank you for all of your work.
Thank you. And there's nothing wrong. I think what to me, your excitement when I see it is about actually educating and helping
Yeah.
others. That's what I
Thank
think. It's
you.
like I've learned this and now I'm just so excited to share it with you. So that's what I love about it. And that's what I see. So it always makes me smile. And I'm always like, I got to talk to her so that I can get, get infused with that energy. So
Yeah. Thank you.
we've had such an amazing conversation, and that means you have to come back because we always have
Yeah.
great conversations. So, what I want to do is leave my audience as I always do, and that is by saying, my sisters, we may be inflamed, but we are still here. And as long as we are here, we might as well thrive together because inflamed sisters thrive together always. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.